What's going on, everyone? It's another episode of Kam Kast here. This is Cam here. I want to thank you for venturing with another episode with me. We're going to do episode 26 now. We're going to talk about The Office, the American Office. I got a lot of thoughts on The Office. This is another episode in which I brought on a friend. I had a friend that come talk that wanted to join me in this podcast so we can talk about The Office. It's my friend Travis. He's the only other person I know that has seen The Office as many times as I have. Well, not as many, but I mean, it's pretty close. So I know I asked Travis if he wanted to get on with me, so he is. We did this interview during Zoom, or not during, by way of Zoom. So please excuse some of the audio, as you know sometimes Zoom is an imperfect system, and my internet is pretty shitty here. So if you guys can, like and subscribe on the podcast, like subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, most importantly YouTube. I'm really trying to push YouTube guys right now because it gives it. It's a better representation of the job that we're doing here. Since I've converted to videos, I'd prefer if you're able to watch on the YouTube, especially with this one, just because there's going to be two of us on screen. It's going to be me and my friend Travis. And of course, follow on Instagram, my home base, cam.cast, kam.kast. I've been putting a lot more memes on there. I've been putting a lot more polls on there. I want to get more engaged with the listeners, get more engaged with you guys, get some of your thoughts, get some of your opinions on stuff like that. For me, that's fun. That's the whole purpose of the channel, is to inspire, thought, create different opportunities of conversating, talking about sports, talking about movies, staying away from everything that's too serious, because we don't need that. I'm all about the good vibes. So that's all I'm going to be giving you, is the good vibes and the good word. Well, without further ado, thank you for listening to the Office podcast. We're going to go ahead and get right into it. And again, please excuse some of the audio in the Zoom if it's not up to, the normal Camcast standards. I'll be working on that if it turns out that some of you are having issues out there. If you're having any issues, please let me know. And in the future, I'll do a better job of addressing those things. But, again, without further ado, let's get into it. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. It's another episode of Camcast here. This is going to be episode 26, and it's been a while since I've had somebody else on the line for Camcast. Actually, since August, episode 12, which was the Kobe Bryant episode, and we had my good buddy Pri on there. Bringing in another one of my good friends for this episode, and it was something that we've talked about for a couple weeks, and I'm really excited to have him on board. One of my longtime friends, Travis Diaz. Travis, thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Long time listener, first time co-hoster. So I'm just here so I don't get fined.
I appreciate that, man. And I won't fine you, but if I do fine you, it'll be after the case. It'll be after the fact, so it's all good. But I brought you on here for a couple of reasons. One, if you didn't read the title already, if you're just clicking it, this is going to be the Office podcast, where we're just going to talk all things The Office and why we love this show. A lot of the things that make this show great, all the characters, all the different plot points and everything like that. So I remember my first actually interaction with The Office, Travis, was actually at your house. It was in the final season, and you guys were talking about watching it and it being like the final season. I remember like you were saying, yeah, and this guy Oscar, he's dating this girl's husband, and he's gay. And I was like, oh, I'm so confused. And obviously that was like in 2014 when the show ended. I think it was 2014 when the show ended.
Yeah, just about.
Yeah, 2014.
Just around there, plus or minus a year.
Yeah, I remember I was like, oh, okay, that sounds really weird. And I remember I watched like the last 3 or 4 episodes with you guys. So I kind of watched the finale before I ever watched the show, right? And then you fast forward, and I've seen the damn thing like, yeah. And I fast forward, I've seen the thing like 10 times. But I think you're the only other person that's watched it as much as I am. So I figured you'd be the perfect person to bring onto the show.
Yeah, I don't remember that, but I do believe it happened.
My memory always is like, yeah.
It's like an elephant. No, that sounds exactly right. We used to watch it religiously. Yeah. But it's funny because like you do that a lot with a lot of shows. You see it and you don't believe the hype, and then you see it, and then dude, you get
for sure.
You dive straight in.
Oh, and then
Swan dive right in.
And then that happened with me with Game of Thrones. It happened with How I Met Your Mother. I think you brought me on to literally all of those shows. So I mean, you really did. So
I'm very convincing.
I know you are. So I figured I was like, I might as well watch this show. And little did I know it'd become one of my all-time favorite shows, probably my favorite comedy. No, it's not my favorite comedy. That's a different. That'll be a different podcast for a different day. But I mean, it's an amazing show. It has a lot. It's got some of the best jokes of any show sitcom that we've ever seen, and it does that without a laugh track, which is kind of something that it doesn't need. And now after watching all these shows that have had laugh track for all these years, it's like you guys were doing it wrong. The formula is really what The Office, and shows like 30 Rock and Parks and Rec have.
Exactly. I think one of the biggest things about this show that made it so successful was it felt really grounded, to be honest. A lot of these sitcoms you get, like you said, like it doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel real. Like you can really sympathize with a lot of the stuff, the in-office humor and stuff, because it wasn't too off the wall. I mean, given it's a show, so some of it's going to be off the wall. But I mean, you can pretty much say like 80 to 90% of it was like pretty real. Like you could sympathize with it. I mean, some of the characters quirky, but I think that's what really drew people, man.
Well, it's like one of those things where like, if anyone who's ever worked in an office or worked in any type of work environment where you have coworkers and you don't really know their everyday lives, but you see them 40 hours a week and you know exactly who they are, who that person is during those 40 hours a week, there are characters within the confines of the show where you're like, yeah, I know a guy like that, or I know a woman like that, or I know a character or a coworker that's just as annoying as that character. It's like, it's kind of interesting. It's interesting that they were able to do that in such an impressive way without going above and beyond in terms of the believability factor. I think that's what they really captured here, is just something that, like you said, is just really grounded.
Like, can anybody make a joke that's like almost sexual connotation and not say that's what she said and not think of Michael Scott? Like, I really don't think it's possible.
Not anymore.
Because given it's funny because like he didn't start it. Like any kid that went to middle school and drew their little S's with those like 6 little lines and wore Cyrus's to school. This was one of the things that you said was that's what she said.
Absolutely.
But I mean, like he just took it and ran with it. And so a whole culture of people, kids our age that are adults now, surprisingly, I'll just use that as like their gauge for funniness.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then my stepdad, he figured he found The Office, maybe a year ago, and that's all he says now. He's like, man, you ever seen that Michael Scott? He goes, that's what she said, and he just starts laughing. It's really sorry, Kevin, if you're listening to this. That was a really bad North Carolina accent. Please don't be offended.
I love the voice.
Oh, for sure, yeah. But nah, man, this show is really great, and I'm sure that like over the course of the pod, we're going to be able to show people why exactly we think it's the amazing show that it is. So I kind of wanted to start. We have a couple categories for you guys today, and they're basically just loose in terms of where we want to go with the talking, because I know for a fact that Travis and I basically talk about movies, TV shows, and sports every single day, on and off when we're at work, in between downtime and stuff like that. So it's just one of those things where we definitely go on tangents. We definitely get sidetracked, and you better be here for it because it's going to happen. I'm just telling you right now, it's going to happen. It's for sure going to happen, huh, Trav?
King of sidebars. King and queen of sidebars.
So who's the queen? Is it you or me?
Oh, undecided.
It's undecided, just like this election. Undecided.
I'm like Nevada right now. I'm not too sure.
There you go.
Don't know what's going on.
No, I'll be like Oregon.
Political funny guy.
Yeah, I'll be like Oregon then. Oh, this podcast is also brought to you guys by Crown Royal. It's in a coffee mug. It's nice and very respectful. So as in honor of Michael Scott's World's Greatest Boss mug, I'm putting my Crown Royal in a coffee mug.
I got a vintage bottle of Stoli, aged about a week, on my own shelf.
Straight from Russia or what?
Yeah.
Nice.
All right. Probably freaking Pico Rivera.
Oh, for sure, absolutely. Pico Rivera, just like the final climax for Den of Thieves, where they robbed the bank in Pico Rivera. All right, let's go ahead and get into this, man. We're gonna talk about the core cast. So you and I have different opinions about the core cast, right? So I have the solid 4. I have Michael Scott, Dwight, Jim Halpert, Pam Beasley, and then as the show progresses, I have Ed Helms as Andy Bernard as one of the core cast. But originally it's about those 4.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I know we were talking about it a little bit earlier, but
yeah,
I feel like, those 4, and then they evolve to the 5, because realistically, like, you can't, like, the whole story arc branches off of them. Like, if you define any other character, they really just branch off of each one of those guys' storylines, because they kind of navigate their own. But yeah, but at first, honestly, I was like, the show needed to find where it was, and that's why I pushed back a little bit on the core cast, because the first couple of seasons, it really is like Michael Scott's the big one, but then you're still trying to figure out like where everybody's going. Like, is Stanley a big major player? Agreed. I mean,
Stanley's an excellent basketball player, though, for sure.
Oh yeah, top notch. For
secret weapon. No, but the core cast. I mean, like, obviously Dwight, Jim, and Pam were in the series for the entirety, but Michael Scott, played by Steve Carell, he wound up leaving in season 7, and but man, he's definitely one of the greatest characters ever created. This guy, there's no way he could have been made in today's the censorship and how everyone talks about things today. The things he says, especially in the first season, are just like completely off the wall. When they have diversity day, and he says that, and he goes, try my cookie, try my cookie, and it's just, and he says it to Kelly Kapoor, who's like, there's no way that can be done. That's no way. There's no way there's a show that's going to be on network, television at 8 p.m. on Tuesday nights is going to be able to have that type of content without getting some level of scrutiny.
And it's funny because Michael was the king of awkwardness, or is still, because that show, for me, it just runs nonstop.
Oh, man.
So he's the king of awkwardness, but at the same time, he pushes the limits. And, like, honestly, it's kind of sad, but, I mean, there's different situations that we won't get into, just politically and socially. But, like, the limits he pushes, I don't really think you can do a lot of the stuff he did.
No,
like,
you can't.
It's so funny, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, it just is what it is at that point, and it was just really funny, and it pushed the limits, and it like I said before, it was that like mundane like work style, and then they blended in humor, but people could relate. So like this guy wasn't far off from being like an actual real person, because you could just look at your boss and be like, yeah, he's kind of an Andy, or you could look at it and be like, he's kind of like a Michael, or a D'Angelo. Yeah, but I mean, that was the biggest thing that kind of succeeded with the show, to be honest, was really Michael.
It for sure was Michael, and I mean, obviously, that's Steve Carell wasn't really a well-known commodity back then when the show started in 2005. I think that year, the next year, I think that's when he finally got the 40-Year-Old Virgin and movies after that, where he kind of hit it big. And that movie's it's really funny, and it ages really well. But
he hit it big.
I think
what
it's
else
fun.
Hit it big was his hairline coming back.
The hairline came back strong. We need to talk about that for a second.
For season 1 to season 2, dog, it came back like LeBron's hairline. The dude grabbed his first couple paychecks and was like,
"What happened?
This thing's taking off. My hair's coming back."
What happened is what I want to know. That dude was completely balding out. He had double cul-de-sacs going. It was like super thin. And then like season 2, when they realized that they hit something and something was working, the dude got a full head of hair. It was like Creed in season 4, I think, when he came in with the jet black hair. That's what it reminded me of.
The ageism case?
Yeah, the ageism case. That's super underrated. Why did he have so much hair all of a sudden?
And I'll tell you this, to be honest, like, I've watched this show, and I mean, we talk about this all the time, but like, of course, I've watched this show through maybe 6 or 7 times. I know you've watched it countless times.
Yeah.
But I find myself like season 1. Yeah. Well, congrats. I'm midway through, I think, season 3. I'm starting season 3.
I had to do it.
One of the biggest things I have a hard time with is his hair. Like, honestly, season 1 is like 5 or 6 episodes or something. But like, that's the hardest part for me, because they're still settling in, and you just look at his head and you're like, head of hair, and you're like, man, that's not that thick.
There's something not adding up here. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you see him like on his last episode. It's like he had like a curious case of Michael Scott, and like he just like de-aged.
He aged in reverse.
I'm just like thinking, he aged in reverse. Yeah.
He was drinking whatever Brad Pitt was drinking in that movie. So I have no idea. But I mean, I think the reason why the show works so much, obviously the ensemble cast is fantastic, right? And we talked about, but it's the awkward moments that Michael Scott was able to create. And I think the most awkward moment that there was, for me, I'm going to say my most awkward moment, and I think this is like a unanimous one. It's Scott's Tots. That's the answer. It's Scott's Tots. When I watched Scott's Tots for the first time, in fact, I've watched the show 10 or 11 times. Half those times, I have to skip parts of that episode. It's so rough to watch. It makes your skin crawl.
For me, I've started to realize that this is actually a common thing with people, is I pause the episodes. I used to think it was just me. Like, I pause it. Like, I know something's awkward's coming up.
Oh, yeah.
I run over. I hit that pause button because I'm like, sometimes I can stop watching the show and I go do something else. But then in the back of my mind, I'm like, Netflix reminds me, it's like, you're watching this. And I'm like, I got to finish. And then so I'm like, I have to have like a mental prep every time with Michael Scott. And I'm like, given I've seen this before, and I'm like, okay, he's about to do something super awkward. It's not real life. But then I have to just press play, and Scott's Tots is up there.
Ooh,
for me, personally,
go for it.
There's a whole episode. I mean, one of the episodes when they go to see I was gonna say Ann Perkins, but it's not Karen Phillips.
Oh God,
she's like the manager, and they take Jim and they go in disguise. They're gonna prank him, and then that part was so awkward. And I mean, Michael and Dwight and like Jim, their chemistry was amazing, but like Michael just it's awkwardness, and it's just he carries so much of the show.
Well, it was also like I think another underrated part is when him and Pam, when Michael Scott and Pam are going from all the different branches, and they wind up at Holly Flax's old branch, and they find out that Holly has a boyfriend, and then he's like, "So, Mr. AJ, do you have a girlfriend?" And the guy's like, yeah," and he's like, "Does she ever talk about me?" And it's just so the whole room is just quiet, and you can literally cut the tension with like a knife, and then after that Pam has to kind of make up for his presentation, and that was awkward, cutting through the competition. There's just so
feel
much,
like
dude.
If you can forget that this is like a real person, like this is an actor playing somebody, and you forget, and you're like, you think this person's real, like you just like there's very few times like to touch on other series, like Michael Scott's one of them, like Dwight Schrute.
Yep.
I mean, Skyler from Breaking Bad. I know I'm jumping other shows,
sure.
but like there's few times where you call out like in like TV shows, like groundbreaking shows that like you just forget they're acting. Yeah. And that was one of the moments, man. Like he literally like he just climbs that mountain of awkwardness, and he just keeps going, dude. And
there's never been a show. 100%. But there's never been a character on any show ever that's been able to put their viewers in such a state of awkwardness like this show. And it's not like, sometimes it's awkward because there's like sexual tension or something like that, or there's something on screen that you don't necessarily want to see. But it's awkward because this guy does not know how to behave as a normal functioning adult. So everything it becomes like everything is a hijink. Like when he proposes to his real estate agent at the Diwali festival in front of everyone, that was awkward. The whole dinner party, which is one of my favorite episodes, is really awkward.
Oh, well,
Jim literally says in the show, he's like, I think that, what do you say? He's like, I think Jan and Michael are playing their own game on who can make their guests more uncomfortable. They're both winning. It's just
the gag reel from that one is the greatest.
Oh my God. Yeah, you've seen it, right?
Sidebar. Yeah.
Oh, dude. I watched it, I think, again, like a couple weeks ago. It's unreal because everything, and I don't think any of that was scripted. I think it was all off script and all off the cuff. Like the whole like TV thing when he's like, I broke down and I finally got myself a flat screen, and they pan out and it's like a TV that's like this big, And like he's like,
it's and like if we need to have of a TV, to be honest.
Yeah. And he's like, if we need space, I just push it into the wall. He pushes it like an inch. He's like, look at all this room. It seems like that.
My favorite one from that one, because it just goes with the awkwardness and how Michael is. So it's kind of like on purpose, but at the same time, he's like laughing. Is like they give him a tour of the house specifically for this episode. They give him a tour of the house, and they're going up, and they go up to the bedroom. And I kid you not, it's so subtle, and that's what the show that's what works with shows. It's like when it's so subtle, but it's natural. It's like not subtle but forced. And he goes in, and there's their bed, and then like it's a combination of things. And they're like, "Oh, Jan sleeps there," and they're like, "Where do you sleep, Michael?" He's like, "I sleep right here at the end of the bed." And then he's like, "I just curl up. It's a lot of space." I just start laughing. But
then he lays down.
Then he lays down, but on top of that, there's a tripod aimed at the bed. So
it has a camera on it.
And it has a camera, and then Jan's like, "I thought you put that away," and then he's like, "Oh well," and then he just moves it. Greatest scene.
That's so subtle, but we'll get into that later on in the podcast. But that episode has everything you could ever want in an Office episode, and I think it's the perfect episode. But we'll get into that later on. But every character like Michael Scott needs some characters below it that are always there. Like your Dwights, your Jims, your Pams. What are some highlights of like Dwight for you? What made Dwight a great character to you?
I mean, Dwight, what made him such a great character is, he was semi-grounded. There obviously you could tell he's a little bit of a character on a show. Mm-hmm. If you can meet this person, it's not far-fetched that he wouldn't exist. I think that's the biggest part.
He's for sure the biggest reach.
He toes that line.
Yes, he's for sure the biggest reach that the show does. Yes. No, he's the second biggest reach. I think Mose is the biggest reach of all time. There's no way Mose exists. Mose is not a real person.
Yo,
for sure.
You're one mustache shave away from being Mose.
I'm very close. I'm very close. What happened was
you just shaved that.
Oh, I know. Well, I got rid of the beard, and then I realized I'm not matching the logo anymore, so I had to grow it back. So it's just one of those things. Otherwise, they're gonna show it and be like, "Who the hell's podcast is this?" Oh, it's Cam's. That's not him. He doesn't have a beard. Like they're gonna show us side by side with the logo and my face. Like, that's not him.
And they belong in a milk carton, dog. They're gonna start putting that for the podcast.
I'm a nut guy, hazelnut guy.
But shout out to New Girl.
Yep.
But yeah, so with Dwight, I think just a lot of it is just his character that just makes him pop, you know, to be honest. Yep. Like he takes everything way too seriously. He takes everything at face value. And I just think that's what makes it work because, I mean, it just makes it easier with Jim. And like, you can't talk about Dwight and not talk about Jim. I mean, they're their own two main characters, obviously.
Yes. They're running their own storyline throughout the entire show.
Exactly. And if you don't have Jim like interacting with Dwight and hijinks,
Dwight's unchecked.
Dwight's unchecked, and I really don't think Dwight pops off as far.
No.
Because when you talk about a lot of the great stuff that Dwight does, it's always like Jim's there. Or Michael, to be honest. But more oftentimes than not, it's Jim.
Because it's Dwight
stapling the Jello.
Yes, it's Dwight directly reacting to something that Jim did to him, which gives us a laugh.
Oh my god.
You know, like there are a few things that Jim does that are like remotely hilarious. It's the actions he does that we don't see, which are hilarious. Which are the reactions that Dwight does, you know, which is kind of interesting. But the one thing, you know, it's in like there's what's besides the Jello one, what's one of your favorite pranks?
Gotta be, I think this episode Stress Relief Part 1.
Oh yeah.
Because it's a 2-part. Like they legit filmed a TV movie and they put it in 2, and it's just cinema's genius. But it's at the beginning of Stress Relief Part 1, for those that really don't know, to be honest, it literally is Dwight at his finest, like
for sure.
Like he literally lights a fire in the office.
Yeah.
Who lights a fire in the office?
He's
like I need a lighter. Dude, I don't know to turn my.
He's like, today, smoking is gonna save lives. Like throws, he throws a cigarette in, and it's like the whole thing. Oh no, a fire! What's the procedure? You know, it's like the whole thing.
And then Andy tops it off because they're all playing off of Dwight's energy. And then Andy's like, the fire's shooting at us. And it's just a couple of firecrackers. And I'm like, and then
Michael throws the projector out.
Yeah, and then he's like, help. And then Oscar's in the ceiling. And then Angela has a cat in the cabinet. And there's so many things. And then Dwight is literally just trying to teach a lesson at the expense of people's lives. And then Stanley has a mild heart attack. And
oh my God.
That part. If you were to pick one scene that defines Dwight, I really feel like that would define him. Mm-hmm. Also, him shooting a gun in the floor.
Oh yeah. What's crazy about that?
One of the biggest things.
What's crazy about Stress Relief too is that's a cold open. Like the show just started like that. That's the best cold open in the entire show, like hands down. It doesn't get better than that because that's a top 10-15 moment in the show. But that could, like literally you pan in on the the episode begins, it opens up. They're just panning around the office, and like Dwight, like he looks all sneaky. And he's like, come here to the camera, and he's like looking like a crazy guy. You know, he's saying, "Come this way," and he's showing all this, this fire shit that he has, and he does the whole thing, and then it's a cold open, and then it's like 8 minutes long, and then they roll the credits. It's crazy. Like. I couldn't. The fact that they did that.
Cold opens that were great. They were great. Like they were able to open shows just out the gate, and like everybody knew what it was. Like you knew what you were getting at the first like 2 to 5 minutes at the beginning of an Office episode because so many hijinks went on. But the fact that that was one of the longer cold opens they've ever had. I remember watching that episode with my brother and crying in laughter. Like
I wish. Did you watch it live?
I still laugh really hard, but I watched it live. I think I started catching The Office like on TV probably like 5th season, probably 4th or 5th season, and that's when it was in its sweet spot, to be honest.
That's it. Yeah. We'll talk about that later in the pod too, but yeah, I know my sweet spot of The Office might be different than yours, but it's for me that's fun. So we touched on Dwight, we touched on Jim a little bit, and anything you want to add on Jim before we get moving on to the other minor characters? I think he's the audience, right?
And that's basically what it is. I was gonna say Jim has inspired a whole generation of young adults to, in the real life, look off camera and do a Jim and go, and then just turn back. Who are they looking at? We'll never know.
No, we never know. There might be a secret camera that's filming.
We have a need.
Yes.
We have a need to look at it.
Yes. It's that looking off. I don't think it had ever been done before because, first of all, shows had never been shot this way. So it's all, it's none of it. The Office trailblazed so many different things. Like I said, the laugh track, they did talking heads, like interview style. But I mean, we got to give credit to the British Office because the British Office is the one that originally did this. The same people that created the American Office, they did the British Office first with Ricky Gervais and all those guys. I've seen a couple episodes of it. I never watched it all the way through, but it's very, I mean, Ricky Gervais, I love. He's hilarious. He's very, very funny. But they got it right with this cast. And the cast is the important part of this show. If these characters aren't likable
with this cast,
no, they couldn't have. I think it's perfect casting. There are a lot of people that auditioned to play Steve Carell, and they had him on throughout the show. They had Bob Odenkirk was supposed to be Steve Carell. They thought about having, I believe, Jim Carrey be Steve Carell. Bunch of people were tasked to, maybe be Michael Scott's character, but Steve Carell was born to play this role. There are a few things that he's better in than this, and he's amazing in this, and he does it for 7 seasons, basically carrying the entire show on his back. And he's on every single. He's never off.
And I think that's one of the best parts of like Michael. I know we keep going back to it, but man, Steve Carell, if he didn't have this character, I mean, I forget the timeline, but I think 40-Year-Old Virgin came in like.
I think it was 2000. I can check right now because I'm curious.
Yeah, because it was like it kind of seemed almost synonymous, but I'm pretty sure The Office happened just before. Then 40-Year-Old Virgin was like maybe just in between season 1, season 2.
It was. It came out in 2005, so they were like the same time. So he like popped.
And he popped. So like having the Office character that he had, then with 40-Year-Old Virgin, I feel like he did have some people that he was using as a platform from The Office, and then it just skyrocketed past that point because people started noticing Steve Carell, which I feel like drove them to the show to get more Steve Carell.
Yep.
Because he played not the same character, but he was able to embody a character that was awkward, right? Yep. In a different right. But it still came back down to Michael Scott. Like Michael Scott and his gosh dang paper company he ran. Like that thing was hilarious. But
yeah, it's a great show. And we talk about Jim. Pam is a major character, but I have a lot of inherent issues with Pam. I feel
like I don't like Pam.
I know.
Like,
I
I'm
agree.
Not scared to say it. I was scared before, but I'm not scared to say it now.
I think she might be the lamest character on the show. She's definitely the person that you've seen before, like at your job or just in your everyday life. She's very plain, not very exciting, not funny. But I don't know. I don't dislike her, but she's just not super interesting for a character that's a main character. And I don't know if that's her fault or the writing's fault.
I feel like Pam Beesly is an interesting character. Yes. Honestly, I feel like if you were to so let's think of the 4 main characters you talked about.
Okay.
If you were to let's recast each one and let's see if the show works. I think out of all 4 of them, Pam would be the only one you could actually recast and the show would still work. Like if you recast Jim, Dwight, and Steve Carell, doesn't matter. It's not happening.
Yeah, it's different.
I mean, it's a different show. But if you recast Pam, I really think this is a shout out to I forgot her name, Pam's actress name, but shout out to her because she did a good job. Jenna Fisher. Yes. But I mean, honestly, I think it was more writing, but at the same time, she doesn't do a lot of cinematic stuff either that I've seen. Like I know she was in a Dewey Cox story, Rock Hard. But
she was in Hall Pass. She hasn't been. She's not a great actor. Yeah. She hasn't been in a lot of stuff. And this is her big thing. This show is her big thing. It's also Rainn Wilson's big thing, but it's a huge thing. I mean, he's Dwight Schrute. You know what I mean?
I like Rainn Wilson as an actor, to be honest. I like.
He doesn't do a lot. I mean, he's a creepy dude in the second Transformers movie, and I don't know anything else he's in. I know you like that one where he's a superhero, right?
Dude, there's a movie called Super, and I only watch it just because of Dwight, obviously, because he's Dwight. But dude, it was good. But he also plays like I'm gonna say delusional version of Dwight, but a version of Dwight. Dwight is delusional, but this one is he acts on his delusion. Like I feel like Dwight also has self-control, but that's why I watched it. It was funny. So,
interesting. Yeah, but so let's go down this rabbit hole. Who do you think could have played Pam Beesly a little bit better? Somebody that is self assured, that maybe has a little bit more humor, because Pam has some good. Excuse me, that was Crown. Pam has some good, like she has some good. Pam has some good, moments of comedy where, because she has a lot of interactions with Michael Scott, but I think Jenna Fisher played it so deadpan that it was tough. A lot of it didn't get a laugh. So like, I'm trying to think if maybe like somebody, I can't even think of who it could possibly be.
And I think it's not necessary, and it's not your fault, because I feel the same way. Just because this show's such a staple, I think it makes it hard for us to recast, to be honest.
It does. I agree. Really she's from beginning to end.
And so it kind of just like, you have to think about like how the show was cast. Like they kind of went a direction, like the production crew and like Michael Schur and whoever the casting person was, but to find people that didn't necessarily have like big opportunities,
Yes.
They didn't have past gigs where they were known. So that's kind of where like you kind of like, oh, you could do your dream casting, but at the same time, like they kind of were big on just like, yeah, and exactly, like I feel like that. Like I just feel like at that time it's hard to think, because you just know it wouldn't really be true. Like they were looking for like new people,
Yeah, I agree.
But it's hard to think. I just think I don't think I can answer it, but I just do think that like Pam would be the only one you could do that you could change out. Other ones, man, it's hard. Yeah, that's what she said.
That's what she said. And then like the fifth core cast, Andy Bernard. Just quick comments on Andy Bernard.
It's a
quick comment. I mean, he was great when he came on. This is another guy who wasn't super famous. Let me look real quick. Where is this guy?
Ed Helms, man. What a mountain that man has climbed. He looks kind of dorky, but
and then he fell right off.
Kind of. So yeah, I mean, honestly, yeah.
So he started in The Office in 2006, and then he had The Hangover in 2009. I think he had a movie before that too, but he like blew up for a couple years because of this and The Hangover, and he became a lot more famous than what they intended him to be, right? So as the show progressed, they had to continue to give this guy a more sizable role, which wound up, he became the manager of Dunder Mifflin Scranton after Steve Carell left, which was probably the worst move for that character. I mean, when Andy became manager, I think I'm not alone in this one. He became one of the worst people that ever inhabited the show. Like there with like annoyingness of like Todd Packer. Like he's that level of bad, and like very, being just an overall douchebag, and just being a horrible, a narcissistic personality type guy. He was horrible as the manager.
I mean, it goes a lot to writing, to be honest, and
true.
It makes you not like him. I'll say that. It makes you not like him. I still think Andy was funny, but like towards the tail end, they kind of just started going over that line. Like I don't want to say jumping the shark, but they kind of like made him like kind of like updo everything he did. And I like Andy from before he was a manager, because the kind of awkwardness he brought to the office was great. Like he gave me one of the greatest lines is like the fire shooting at us. Like as if fires can shoot guns. Like that dude is hilarious.
I mean, when he wasn't manager, when he came over from where were they at? They were in Connecticut, Sanford. When he came over from
Stanford,
that's how deep I know this show, guys. I am very much into the lore of The Office and everything that goes on. I had a map of all the different branches. There was a Canton branch. Anyways, we'll keep going. But he was a great character. He had some of the greatest, like when they had the picnic and he was in the sumo suit and they pushed him over and he's floating. And he's like, "Hello, I'm from a group called Dunder Mifflin." It's like stuff like that made me laugh. He's like floating.
But the funniest thing is nobody got him, and like they had a whole bonfire and nobody cared.
It just let him float away.
Yeah, Andy Bernard, man.
I know.
Nard dog.
The Nard dog. But all right, so that's the quarter cast. And earlier, I want to talk about all the different minor characters on this show. Obviously, like a lot of the people within The Office are considered minor characters because we don't really know anything about their lives. For the most part, there are a couple people that show up, but they're tied to main characters. People like Angela, Daryl, a couple other people like that, and Aaron. Those are really like the main three where their life is directly connected to the main character's life, which is why we're able to see more about them. But I actually put a whole bunch of characters into a bunch of different groups based off of, what I think that they are. So I thought this was kind of fun. So these are characters. So I have 5 groups. The 5 groups are trash. We have rare but hilarious. We have comic relief, where their whole sole purpose is they're bringing in a joke, or they're the blunt of it. The brunt of it. Is it the brunt of the joke or the blunt of a joke? It's the brunt, right?
Brunt. But I
don't know if that's a word.
Let's go with brunt. Let's go with brunt.
I was told there would be no vocabulary, so I assumed that there wouldn't be. But so and next category. Oh, I know. Actually, I had to translate this entire thing from Spanish to English. That way we can understand what you were saying.
You got to press SAP at the top.
SAP at the top. If you guys can, please press the SAP button on your Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. We'll be able to translate that right over for you. So, all right. So the next one I have is they grew on me upon rewatches. These are characters that I couldn't stand in the beginning, like maybe the first couple times through. But as I said, I've watched the show way more than a person should ever watch one show, because I'm a creature of habit and I hate change and I hate new things. For those of you like Travis does, he knows me well. I don't adjust to new things easily. It's a general process. Hard. Yeah. And then the last one is just characters that are on the show. They're not bad. They're not good. They have some funny moments. But overall, they're mostly there to be on the show and, advance the plot. Which one do you want to start with?
Let's start with trash, man.
Trash.
You know what the trash is.
All right, I got some good trash here for you. So first trash, it's the 2 guys that got added at the very last season. We call them Dwight's son and Plop, aka Clark and Pete. They did nothing for the show. They're not good. I don't know. What do you have anything to say about them?
I feel like Clark is somebody chose. No, he's a good actor. They chose him because I feel like Hollywood wanted him to be the awkward, nerdy guy that has like a dark side. Because he shows up in I think it's like Sex Drive.
Hot Tub Time Machine.
Yeah. He shows up in Kick-Ass movies and and then he's funny.
He is funny.
And I feel like they wanted us to bank on that, given some of those movies happened at that time. So I give him more leniency, but I will put him in the trash category because there's so many characters in here and you got to put somebody in there.
Yeah. So I'll put him there
because honestly, without him, it doesn't really change nothing, to be honest.
It doesn't change anything.
Oh, and then that one girl, I forget, Katie. No, not Katie.
Oh, Katie? The one who tried to take away, I think it was Karen, who tried to take away Jim?
The one that may have had a affair with Jim.
Yeah. That was trash, dude. Yeah. That was just, they didn't know what to do with season 9. And season 8, a lot, especially season 9. Upon rewatch, I normally watch the first 3 episodes of season 9, and then I skip to the finale. Those are the only ones that matter. The finale's fantastic.
I grind it all out, bro. I grind it all out.
I mean, I've seen it so many times, so it's just like, what am I missing? I already know what happens here. It sucks. It's not good. So I skip it. I skip to the parts I like.
Yeah.
So next one.
Probably Plop, dude.
Plop
has got to be in there for me.
Oh, no, Plop's in there. It's Clark and Pete.
Oh no, I'm doubling down. I'm stuffing Plop down there farther, dog. I'm letting you know.
He's a horrible character.
Plop and Aaron was not something I was asking for.
No, I don't care.
I wanted Andy and Aaron, and they just went such a weird way with it.
Yeah, I don't know what
they kind of lost their way, but yeah, Plop, we didn't need him, man.
He wasn't funny. The only other thing I've ever seen him in, he was one of the villains in Rampage.
Really?
Yeah, you didn't know that, did you?
No, I seen him in one movie with that one of the girls from Talladega Nights, like Danny Hamlin's. Not Danny Hamlin. That's a real person, but one of the people's wives in there. Girl from Superstar from SNL.
Oh, Molly Shannon.
Yeah, Molly Shannon. She was in a movie. Yeah. I've never seen it, but my Netflix or my Amazon Prime literally tortures me and shows me that movie poster every single time. And I just click right by it because I don't really care for Plop.
He's bad.
He did nothing for me in that.
He's bad. So the next trash, and we're gonna kind of this one for sure is trash. We can both agree on this one. It's Gabe Lewis. I think we can both agree on this one.
No, I like Gabe. I don't know why so many people don't like Gabe. Don't get me wrong. I'm not putting Gabe at the top, but I'll put Gabe above trash because Gabe brought awkwardness.
I'll tell you why.
But
I'll tell you why he's trash. For an entire season, all he's doing is mad at Andy because Andy stole his girlfriend. I don't care about your. Oh God, it was not funny. It's rough. It's rough.
He was challenging him to fights every single chance he get. There was a whole episode where they wanted to fight. Dude, it was so good.
Oh man. So the other two I have Nellie Bertram, which you like Nellie because of different shows, but but I need you to be specific to this show. When we're introduced to her in season 7, she's bad. She's not likable. She's not funny. She's not funny. Right? She's not Travis, she's not funny.
Oh, dude, I think she's funny. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, you tell me not to bank it on other shows, but when I see Nelly, I see Donna Noble, and for people who know Doctor Who, like, she is the Doctor's companion for a whole season, and she's just a season.
You know you like Nelly just because she's a redhead. That's why.
That was gone and past, but it still lingers. Yeah. But no, to be honest, she did have a weak storyline, and they kind of forced some stuff on us. But I think she just had a lot of popularity coming off of Doctor Who. And at that time when I was watching it, I literally stopped and stared at the screen. I was like, that's Donna Noble. I was like, I love her. But that makes me not impartial. I mean, partial.
No, I respect it. I have nothing else to say about her because I get annoyed of her.
I won't put her in trash. Also, she stole a baby.
She did steal a baby. That's confirmed.
I don't know how the showrunners she stole a baby.
The showrunners should be upset about that. What they did was they said that anybody who wants a kid can go ahead and just take a kid.
Yeah, can I go take a kid? No, because then I have to stay 200 feet away from a school.
Oh, for sure. Don't do that. Yeah. And then my last trash person it's Kelly Kapoor. I don't like Kelly.
If she was trash, she wouldn't have her own show, bro.
But have you seen her show?
Seen the ads. I've seen the ads. I've seen the ads.
Dude, she's annoying.
Look, she's difficult to manage, and she says so herself.
But who do you manage? Myself. Anyway, that's my trash category. Which one do you want to do next?
Dealer's choice. Let's go. I'm ready.
All right, let's do into the rare but hilarious. I got 4 nominees for this one. Why is my Siri popping up? That's bad. Okay, rare but hilarious. I have Charles Minor, Todd Packer, D'Angelo Vickers, and Mo Schrute.
Man,
that's all. That's a great quad, right? That's a great quad. Charles Minor, he's in there for like 3 episodes. He's fantastic. He's just it's Idris Elba playing a dick of a boss, but he's also extremely charismatic. But he hates Jim. It's the first person we meet besides Dwight that hates Jim.
And the funny thing with me is I love Charles. Charles was great.
Oh, he's great.
I think we needed that. We needed that. Jim was too good. He was too good. Yeah. And you had nobody that didn't like him. I mean, other than Dwight, which didn't matter because he actually loved him. He loved him. But
he did love him.
Freaking Charles not liking Jim was the biggest confusion, but also the biggest funny stuff. And everything Jim did just so happened to be the wrong thing at the wrong time. I know. Charles just looking at him when he wore the tuxedo to work, and he's like,
that's his
wearing the tuxedo to work is appropriate. And then he's like, well,
nope.
And then he does a Jim face, but he's also very awkward, and it puts Jim out of his character, which I love because that is real. That is real.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure happened to us at work at some points. We're just like, oh god, I didn't mean that's awkward.
Wearing a t-shirt and some ripped hole in my jeans, and then showing up to a meeting with some owner of the company, and I'm like,
oh god.
He's
and then he has one of my favorite lines in the show where they're at the company picnic and he yells at Jim. It's like, look who just woke up, and then he spikes it when they're playing volleyball. I've been up for a while. He just and he flexes on him. It's why are you bringing this energy? You're trying to stop the apocalypse again? What are you doing?
Oh my gosh, I just brought a lot of energy to a character, and it's funny because I know he's not 007, but you're getting a guy that people want to be 007 to play a character in a comedy show.
Yeah,
and so that's what makes me laugh. Is he's such a action guy, serious character? Because I mean, I don't know if you've seen it, Luther was really good to see him go from the Wire to go to Luther, the show on BBC, and then to come back and do this comedy character. It just, I mean, dude, it was just great.
The fact that they got him was amazing.
And he enjoyed it.
For sure. He shows up, 3-4 times, collects a paycheck, and gets to mess around with people. That's awesome. The next one, I don't have a lot to say about him, but Todd Packer, he's just a very shrewd, horrible guy. But man, he just made the office really uncomfortable for everyone that was there, and he just provided laughs. That's all he did was provide laughs.
So, question.
Okay, go for it.
Todd Baker, how long does he survive in 2020 at a job acting the same way he did in 2005?
Oh, dude, he's fired. Like, immediately.
Dude, he's gone. That guy's gone.
That dude's in jail somewhere.
Yeah, he's a criminal, right?
Yeah, he's a criminal.
That dude has to stay away. That dude has to stay away from a school.
He drugged a bunch of people. Remember all those cupcakes? Some had laxatives, some had like recreational drugs. Like,
oh my gosh,
that's where the show. I was like, oh my god, they really did that. He put stuff in there. He literally drugged these people.
Lunatic,
dude. I know. He's great. And then D'Angelo. Not know how much to say about him, but is Will Ferrell obviously really funny. Like really funny. The whole juggling thing when he juggles the balls that are imaginary. That was just.
To the Daredevil song.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was to Evanescence, Bring Me to Life.
Dude, forever known as a Daredevil song.
Yes.
Daredevil song.
Yes.
Just crazy. He's going to juggle without any of his balls.
Yep.
That's what you said. But.
Yeah. And then the last one, Mo Shroot. Mo's is hilarious. For those that don't know, it's Michael Schur. He's a producer of the show. He also produced Parks and Rec. He produced The Good Place. This guy's, he's obviously like a genius. He's produced a lot of really good shows. And I wonder who came to him. They're like, hey, we need you to be Dwight's cousin and just do that for us, please.
To be honest, I think it was BJ Novak probably told him that.
I know.
BJ Novak wrote everything that he needed to do.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's fantastic. Yeah, and then it's great. The next one we're gonna do is we're gonna let's go through these a little bit quicker as we're going through.
All right.
Okay. So these next people are on the show. I'll say the name. You give me a couple sentences of what they mean to you. Again, series popping up, and I'm like podcast. All right, ready? On the show, David Wallace.
I feel like he's a pushover.
Yeah,
I agree. Pushover. Every time he tries to stand his ground, everybody just gets back at him. And then he has that weird company called Suck It that he sells to the military and makes a fortune and buys them back. Really weird storyline for David Wallace. I can't not say that he's David Wallace in any movie I see him in, though.
That's true. He's David Wallace.
I'm like, he's David Wallace.
Yeah, forever. Meredith Palmer.
Alcoholic. Like literally when they go around the table and she's like, hi, my name is Meredith. I'm an alcoholic. And she's like, oh, wait. And then she stops. Like,
all right, Karen Filippelli.
Man, baddie.
Oh, for sure. It's Rashida Jones.
I love Rashida Jones. Oh,
wait, are we sure? Are we sure it was Karen Filippelli or was it Ann Perkins? I'm not sure which one was which.
Hey, the jury's still out.
I don't know.
Who knows? Great, fantastic. They should have used her more. Best scene is when she's in the Michael Scarn and she says, she says something like "bang
you
me."
You've ever done it with an entire bachelor party, baby?
And then they cut to her and she's like, "Why would they use that out of all the things I filmed?"
Yeah, I know. I'm telling you, I know like all these words. Next one, Roy.
Ah, man, Roy. Anger management.
Just a bad dude.
Just anger management.
Just a bad dude. Oscar.
Ubiquitous. I feel like Oscar reaches so many levels. He just touches everything. He just touches everything. He's the guy that says, "Well, actually," they have a whole episode about that.
Yeah, he's funny. Phyllis.
Man, Phyllis annoys me, to be honest. She's not trash, but she's the grandma of the bunch.
For sure.
The weird grandma that's like sexually active at like 80 years old. The one that's like contracting herpes at the home.
Oh yeah, for sure.
like she's like real sus.
Oh man, for real. Sure, yeah, absolutely.
So I did nothing much to say about that than Bob Vance is just going off.
Oh yeah, Holly.
Holly's just a great person.
She was.
I mean, like they obviously constructed her in a lab, like lab being their mind, Michael Schur and probably whoever else the writers were.
Who would be perfect for Michael Scott?
This is the perfect exactly. This is the perfect person. Like their engagement was the epitome of like how she meshed with him. Yeah. Like they didn't even say it in regular tones. Didn't they say it like E.T.? They like he got her down on her knee.
Marry you, I will. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, she was the perfect person. And I mean, yes, you can argue that, it doesn't seem real, but it worked perfectly for the show.
Oh no, I agree. And then the last one on the show is Angela.
Ah, man, Angela's just funny, man. Like
you needed her in the office.
You needed her because everybody's got an Angela, dude.
Yes, everyone's got one of those. Yeah.
So I can't hate her. She played her character great.
Oh, she's great. Apparently, her and Jenna Fisher are like best friends in real life too.
Yeah, they got that. Shout out to the Office ladies. I know I was talking to you about
podcast.
That lady.
Yeah.
Their podcast. They break down every episode.
That's awesome. I got to start listening to that one actually.
Exactly.
All right. So this one I'm going to go into it because these are characters like this is kind of like a category just like specifically for me. Right. Just because these are characters that grew on me as time went on. First one is Robert California. On first watch, you're like, who the hell is this guy? You know, this guy's crazy. James Spader. Like, how did they get this guy in there, first of all? And then, like, as you continue to watch it over and over again, season 8, because that's the only season he's in, except for the last part of season 7 when they're interviewing for the manager's job, he is just insane. Like, he's just
crazed lunatic.
Yes, and he's like, so do you want what does he say? Do you want the normal answer or do you want what does he say? The animal metaphor or the sexual metaphor? And then he's like, oh God, the animal one. And then Jim and then he's like, when two animals have sex, you know what? You're going to want the sexual metaphor. And then Jim was like, wait, that wasn't the sexual metaphor?
No, dude, what made me laugh is so much. Like he like my favorite scene is he goes and everybody's so on edge, right? And with Robert California, just because he admits this awkwardness that's not like Michael Scott, but brings a different energy to the room, but to the same, like, I guess I want to say the level, but it's not the same. But
it's different because it feels like he's gonna like kill you.
Yeah, but at the same time, you don't know if he's proud of you.
Yeah, no idea.
They had that episode
you
with Aaron.
You blithering idiot.
Like they had that episode with Aaron, and then like everybody's on nervous because he's gonna look at somebody and have a conversation with them, and then he looks at Aaron and he walks towards Aaron. He's like, Aaron, and then she's like, Robert California, let's have a conversation. And then she's like preparing herself mentally.
And he's like describe your day so far. And she's like, woke up. Never start your story with I woke up. People have been doing that since the dawn of time.
Dude.
It would not be a podcast if I didn't bring out my Robert California. I had to.
I don't know how many times we start the day with I woke up.
I woke up. Never.
People have been have a conversation.
People have been waking up and saying that with their eyes open since the dawn of time. He's great. He's fantastic. It's another character actually happens to be the other character in that situation, Aaron. Aaron grew on me as the show went on. Like the first time I watched this girl is really annoying. But then as you keep realizing, it's like she is hilarious. She said some of the funniest things because there's not a negative bone in her body, right? She's just like a happy-go-lucky individual. So everything that she does is like she's doing it as like a child for the very first time. And it's amazing.
And one of the best things we get to know about her more as a person, I think, too. I mean, one of the beginning episodes was the date mic. Like that's episode that people can always know is Date Mike. nice to meet me. Like she goes, but it's funny because it's like a subplot at that point because there's so many great points at that episode.
Oh, for sure. That's a great episode.
You got Dwight standing there, and then Angela sneaks up and he like cusses. He's like, "What the?" But the thing is, when like her and Andy are having like the secret relationship, and then Andy's just being Andy, right? This is peak Andy saying we got to throw him off the trail and like kind of try to disguise ourselves. And he's like, all right, you got to go flirt with somebody else to throw him off the scent. And nobody cares. Yeah. But it works. And then she goes over to a guy at the bar and just like puts her hand on the guy's leg, on his thigh, and says, hey, big boy. And then Andy yanks her.
It's like, what are you doing?
He's like, where did you learn to float? Where did you learn to flirt? Black Snake moan? And then like, bro, and then from that point on, I've never laughed so hard. Like,
oh, she's great.
Just solidified Aaron. That just solidified Aaron. She's great.
No, I think my favorite moment of hers was when they're at the Sabre store in Florida and she's dressed up as a hippie. And like, she's like, you know,
she starts dancing and she's
like, I'm the first, I'm waiting in line. There's a line right behind me and she's like dancing and they pan out and just like hobos sleeping on the sidewalk. Oh man, that part that she got funnier as it went on. She became one of my favorite characters in all seriousness.
And obviously people saw it because she got her own show. So
she got her own show, and people love the unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. And she was great in 21 Jump Street too.
Oh yeah, she was the teacher.
She's a really horny teacher.
AP Kim. Shout out Mr.
Kim.
Green. Never had him.
Mr. Green. Yeah. One of Altaloma High School's finest. I'm sure he'll watch this someday. I have two more characters. This one I'll go real quick. Jan Levinson. As I hated her in the beginning, but as time went on, I realized she's crazy and psychotic.
Oh, she's that ex-girlfriend you want to forget about.
Oh, for sure. But she's amazing. like there's so many, like that whole, like we already talked about it a little bit earlier, so we won't go too into it, but the dinner party is like Janet peak Jan. She's she peak Jan. She's listening to the album of Hunter, who she definitely had sex with, and he was underage.
She banged Hunter. She banged Hunter. Like literally, she banged Hunter.
By the hands. It's rough.
It's a terrible CD, by the way, but it's a banger of a song.
But then it said, "Make me a man." So for sure, he was like 16. I just want that to be known. It's Jan's little skeevy.
Yeah.
But she's great. And then the last one. It's a tough one for me because this guy's basically played 3 characters in The Office, right? He starts off being the intern, and then he becomes the boss. But then, like, after he came back to Dunder Mifflin, after it was reabsorbed by Michael Scott Paper Company, he became a hipster. And that's when he was, like, the best, was when he was a hipster. Do you agree on that? He was fantastic as a hipster.
I think what made that work,
it was so funny.
First, he was Ryan the temp.
Yes.
Then he was Ryan, like their boss, all of his boss. Yep. And then he went Ryan, like his true colors Ryan, which was
he became
just
himself.
A loser. Like that was like really conniving and just really like codependent on like an attention whore. Like it was really funny.
Oh yeah.
But all I gotta say to that is woof.
Woof. Woof. No, he's great. All right, last category. And I know one of these guys we're going to be talking a lot about. Because I know it's probably my favorite character on the show besides the core cast, so we're gonna save him for last. First guy, this is comic relief. These are guys that either their whole purpose is for hilarity, in my opinion, or it's guys that are they're the one of the joke. So first is Toby, obviously. Toby is the bane of Michael Scott's existence. Toby Flenderson exists in the show just so Michael Scott can make fun of him, and it's played by the guy's actually a writer for the show. He originally didn't want to be in the show.
Was it really?
He's I think it was Flanagan, right? What's his name?
Oh, I've seen that name.
Paul Lieberstein.
Yeah.
He's a writer, but they wanted him on the show because he looks like an HR guy. And I mean, we've seen HR guys before. They are Toby. They're very
Nobody likes the HR guys. I feel really bad for the HR guys.
I do too. They don't do anything wrong. It's just, why does Siri keep popping up on my podcast? That's kind of annoying.
Siri has a mind of her own, bro.
Man, that's really
trying to
creepy.
Cut in on the podcast.
See, that's what happens when you do your first Zoom. So it's kind of it's all work in progress. Thank you for bearing with us. Brought to you by Crown Royal.
Ooh, brought to you by Stoli.
Stolsnaya. So yeah, Toby's great. Next character, Stanley. Stanley's just funny. Stanley has some of the best like catchphrases in the entire show. He goes like, what does he say? He's like, I'm gonna try to do it off the cuff. What did you say? I work at a job that pays me too little. Live in a house that I can't afford to try to put my daughter through a school that I definitely can't afford. But on Pretzel Day, I like Pretzel Day. Oh, dude, Stanley's great.
Stanley having the heart attack.
Oh, man.
I mean, I feel like if they put anybody else, like it wouldn't have worked because Stanley just doesn't respect, and he outwardly says that he does not respect, he does not like Michael Scott.
No, damn.
He goes on to his, and like he's like, you're stressing me out. Like this bracelet's beeping every time Michael takes a step. It was great.
Oh, it's great. Next one, Kevin Malone.
Oh man, can you think of chili without Kevin Malone?
It's the thing I do best.
Him literally spilling the chili and then just like, help me.
That I spend all day the night before dicing tomatoes and pressing onions. And he just Kevin's great. Everything Kevin does is funny, but he wasn't originally that way. The first couple of seasons, they realized that, I'm guessing, they needed a dumbass for the show, right? Just somebody just like who's well mannered, who's well minded, but they needed somebody that just to be dumb. So, and they found a perfect guy for, in Kevin.
And it's funny because a lot of the stuff that worked too was his voice. Cause like what I didn't know for the longest time is like, when you look at Kevin and you hear Kevin, you really believe it. But then you start noticing that the actor, he's actually sounds nothing like him. He sounds nothing like him. And it's just funny because it just goes into how much these actors could really just like, and I think that's what worked when we were talking about before about how like no name these actors were, right? And like, you could literally believe because one, you didn't have any understanding of what they were before, but they just built into themselves. And what I think worked, and I don't know if they did on purpose, was they used a lot of the first names. They used a lot of the first names for their own character names, so it made it a little bit more natural. They responded well. I think it made them feel comfortable.
And segueing from that, we're going to go from a character who is named after his entire name, the only one in the show, definitely a favorite among everyone our age and everyone that's ever watched the show. Creed Bratton playing Creed Bratton,
dude. Creed.
Man. If there was ever a character on any show that he's rarely on it, right? He maybe has a couple lines every few episodes. Every time Creed says something, it's instantly quotable, and it's like one of the best quotes the show's ever had. Like I can go on and on about everything he's ever done. Like when Jim is running away from Robert California in episode 8, he goes up there and Creed's like flying this helicopter, and he's like, Creed, I was never here, and he's like, cool, dude, but what about your friend? And there's no one behind Jim.
Jim looks behind us like.
But then another funny one with Jim is when they're playing chess in the break room, and that one's so funny. It's just like he's like, you want to play chess? And he's like, yeah. He's like, and then what does he say? He says, hey, do you want to date my daughter? No, I'm married to Pam, but I thought you were gay. Why would you want me to date your daughter, Creed? He goes, oh.
Literally the funniest one-liners Creed has. Like there was a whole episode where he wasn't really there the whole episode, but when they had the mobile office and then they go pick up a hobo, they're gonna pick up a hobo or a hitchhiker, and then they pick him up and he's like in this suit, like he's gonna be in the 1950s like song.
And didn't even realize he wasn't in the bus either.
Yeah,
I don't even remember.
You didn't even know, and then all of a sudden he's like, "Yeah, playing hooky for work," and then he looks at the work, and it's like the work bus, and then he's just like, "Oh God,
oh God."
Like who does that? Like who thinks of that? Like you even remember he was there, man.
You're paying too much. What does he say? You're paying way too much for worms. Who's your worm guy? You know, like everything. Man,
when they were trying to lose weight, and then he's like,
yes.
Kelly was like, "Yeah, Creed sold me a worm that would help me lose weight," and he was like, "That wasn't a tapeworm." And he just sold her. He just sold her a worm. Like,
oh my God, Creed is so great, man. I love Creed so much. I could. What are some? Like, I think like probably our favorite one that I know you and I quote all the time. If I can't do my scuba, then what's this all been about, man? What am I working toward? And it's just like, oh my God, this guy.
If we could put a tally for how many times we use that at work,
tons.
I mean, we need like multiple whiteboards to fill that out.
It's up there with April Ludgate from Parks and Rec. Mooner I walk, man.
Mooner I walk.
Mooner walk. Oh, that's great. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll get into the rest of the categories in the pod. So stick with us.
What do you mean, Cornish?
All right. Well, I had already recorded this for like 5 minutes without realizing that I didn't press the record button, so that was pretty rough. So we're going to go ahead and give this another go. We go for complete transparency here at Kam Kast. So whenever I mess up, you guys know I'll mess up because I'm not afraid to make fun of myself. But, we're going to continue on with the Office talk because I know Travis and I could talk about the Office for days. Even when this podcast is over, we're going to be talking about The Office. We're going to be debating certain things. We're going to be rewatching it and watching it again. Like I said before, I finished it again today. I think it was the 10th or 11th time. That's no BS. I really think it's been that many times. I know Travis has seen it a bunch of times, but
I can verify that.
Yeah. I mean, it's that the theme song is like it's in my brain. It's just there. But it's sad because this show's been on Netflix for so long, and now it's transitioning over to the Peacock app. And that's where they took away Parks and Rec too, which is my favorite. It's my favorite comedy of all time. For those that don't know, now you know. I know I flirted with it a little bit on the Kam Kast Instagram page. Parks and Rec is definitely my favorite comedy. It's a genius comedy, and it's hilarious. And we'll be getting into that on the very next episode whenever we do it. So
I semi-agree. I'm a captive of the moment. So yes. I'll agree when I watch it.
So for this episode, The Office is your favorite comedy, and then when we get to the next podcast with Parks and Rec will be your favorite comedy.
Exactly.
And I'm okay with that. I'm sure the audience is okay with that. And that is how you remain Switzerland. So I am happy for you that you're able to do that. Stonks. And
stonks,
dude. But yeah, we have a couple more categories we want to talk to you guys about, and so we will. We're gonna get on with that. And again, brought to you unofficially by Crown Royal, because that's my drink of choice.
And Stoli.
All right, so we're going to talk about the best episodes. We kind of touched up on some of these episodes already, right? We talked about stress relief, but we didn't get into the funniest part of stress relief besides the opening, cold open, when they're having CPR class and Dwight cuts the head off the dummy. He puts the face on his face, and he starts going, "Hello, Clarice." And then, what was funnier about that is, like, the lady's trying to teach them how to do CPR. She goes, staying alive. And then Michael Scott goes up there, and he's like, First I was afraid.
I was petrified. And then Andy started singing, and then Kelly starts dancing.
That was Kelly's best moment in the whole show. Like, without a doubt.
She's like, nobody called 911, and the guy died.
No, and then Creed was like, I remember where I saw you. I saw you in the parking lot earlier.
Creed with always the zingers.
That might have been the best minute and a half The Office ever had in terms of because it was complete chaos. None of that. It was. But when Michael started going, at first I wasn't. I was afraid. That was just comedy, dude. That was so funny. I couldn't. So that episode, obviously, we talked about Dinner Party, which might be the best episode of the entire show. It's up there. It's in a discussion. We'll have that discussion. But that episode is everything. It's amazing.
It has it all. It has the main characters, the main core are there.
Yes.
Plus Andy.
And Dwight's 80-year-old girlfriend.
Also babysitter.
But it's strictly sexual. Why does Siri keep popping up? I didn't even say you, Siri.
Siri's trying to get on this podcast, man.
Yeah, she needs
to get on.
Moon or walk, man. Next episode, we talked about it. Scott's Tots,
man.
Man, it's rough.
Sheesh.
It's rough.
All you need to know is when Stanley starts laughing when he hears Scott's Tots, and he just dies. You just laugh with it because you like something awkward's about to happen, man.
That was the loudest we ever saw Stanley in the entire show. Besides the yells at Ryan.
Has it really been 10 years?
Oh God! Niagara, obviously the wedding. The wedding's great. There are a lot of really funny things.
That wedding inspired so many people's weddings, man.
It did.
Like that song. Like I think of it a Chris Brown song when I really didn't care for Chris Brown, but at the same time, it's like that forever was. It was everything. And that was so many people have modeled after that.
And it was a trend actually before that wedding. So it was a wedding, like an actual wedding that did that trend. And then The Office did it, and The Office made it like, famous. Like it's a big deal. But everything leading up to it is like amazing. Like Jim saying that Pam's pregnant and him messing up, and when he thinking that Michael was going to, Michael hooking up with Pam's mom, Kevin wearing shoe boxes as shoes, putting his feet in the ice, It's just all kinds of randomness. Andy tearing his scrotum.
Dude, Andy tearing his scrotum was probably just one of the funniest things I didn't expect.
In a dance battle with Kelly Kapoor. Okay, hear me out on this one. This is something that I picked up on. I think Kelly Kapoor and Andy were supposed to like end up together. There are a lot of instances in the show where they have two separate dance battles.
Yes,
one at Cafe Disco.
Cafe Disco.
Yes. Cafe Disco. But I think that they were supposed to get together because there was even an episode where Andy said that his type is Indians. I don't remember what episode it was, but I remember hearing that.
No, I remember that.
You do? Okay. But
yeah, it's funny because they do have chemistry, and that goes a lot. Like it means that they like each other as far as like friends on the show. And I think those actors really got along because they actually do get together a lot. Like I think not too long ago, I mean, within the last year, they did have a get together before pre-COVID, honestly.
Of course.
Where they got everybody together. And I think it was really Jenna Fisher that really instrumented that.
Yeah.
But they got all the mains together. I don't think Steve Carell was there.
Probably not too famous.
But they got everybody back. Even Ed Helms was there. And it was really cool to see everybody, all the homies together. And they obviously had chemistry because they liked each other. And that's how you know a show is good.
Yeah. Well, they spent just tons of time talking to each other, basically, messing around on the internet. Because all those computers at their desk had internet access, for those that don't know. You didn't know that?
Really?
Oh, dude, I'm coming at you with the facts, man. Yeah, of course. So all those computers had internet access, and like when you're seeing people, working on the computers in the background, they're just surfing the web, checking up on their real life emails.
Creed's thoughts.
What is it? Creed thoughts /creed. Something. It was like a whole long.
I just opened up a Word doc.
Yeah, and I put the URL in there. I've read it. Those aren't things that needs to be shown to the outside world. That was so funny. Next episode that I have Casino Night. I think Casino Night is really interesting, but it's important because it's the first, Jim and Pam kiss, and their story arc really propels the first 3 seasons. And that's for me, it's kind of why the first 3 seasons are so good. It's part of the reason why the first 3 seasons are so good. Like you can tell there's some tension there on both sides, some real positive, romantic tension, but it's never acted upon until that night, right? There are a couple instances where drunk Pam kisses Jim, like at the Dundies and stuff like that.
Dundies.
Yeah.
Do you think that it was at the expense of like? Do you think it did more harm to the later episodes?
Yes.
I feel some type of way about that. Like the show did so well with Pam and Jim, kind of like will they, won't they, and like they kind of miss timing each time.
Yes.
You know, you get a lot of in betweens, and then when they get together, it's good. Like it really is good. But it kind of felt like maybe the show should have ended. But I'm not saying it didn't because I'm enjoying the show for what it was. But
it kind of put the brakes. It put the brakes on some
exactly.
of it.
Yeah.
And what I didn't like was they tried to cheaply break them up in season 9. You know, when the boom mic guy all of a sudden has the hots for Pam, and like, you know, like that was a weird plot device. You know, this dude, what's his name? Brian? Brian, get out of here, Brian. You take your boom mic and you get the hell out of here.
Which was cool because I really wanted that. I know, Brian.
I know, dude. It's like, who is this guy? You're like, who are you?
It was cool to see that them interact with them, but at the same time, I'm like, first you have that, then you have Katie or Karen, or whatever her name is, that I try to get
Karen.
Jim. Something with a K, man.
Yeah, but you can't trust those people with a K first name. That's rough.
Dude, Cameron.
That's rough. Yeah.
But no, you had that going through, and then at the same time, like once that ended, they really tried to bank on the whole thing with Andy trying to get with Aaron, right?
Yep.
So while it kind of tried to fill the void, and it somewhat did. It wasn't really with the void that we looked to having, I guess, filled. That's what she said.
Sorry, that was great.
But it definitely was something they tried to kind of force on us, which wasn't great. But Andy being Andy, not being like the main like boss, it worked. It really did work. But was it the same? No, you could have probably ended it when they got married, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. And that's going to be a topic. I just spit all over my screen. That's going to be a topic for. Yeah, I know you do. Pause. But that's going to be a topic that we'll talk about in the next category. But more episodes. Casino Night's great. The injury. We haven't talked about the injury yet. Where he cooks his own foot on a George Foreman grill.
And why does he cook his foot, Cameron?
He cooks his foot on the grill for a couple of reasons. He likes to wake up to the smell of bacon. So what he does is each night he puts 4 strips of bacon on his George Foreman grill. And then his alarm goes off at 6 a.m. At 6 a.m. he turns on the grill, closes it, and then he wakes it back up at 6:30. And so that to the great smell of bacon. It's good for him. It's nutritious. It's great. It's a great start to the morning. For those that don't know, that was pretty accurate to how the line actually goes. But it's when he's giving the explanation to everyone in the office why he can't come in. It's so Michael. He literally clamped his own foot on George Foreman grill.
What's funny is that Michael thrives on attention. Like, I mean, if you want a real life depiction of Tinkerbell, I mean, you're gonna look at Michael's gut, because that dude, if he doesn't have attention, he's gonna die. But the funny thing is, because Dwight gives him that attention, just without any thought. He gives him that attention. And like that episode, he's like, he needs somebody to pick him up because he burned his foot. And then Dwight's like, I'll go. And he's like, anybody but Dwight. And then he's like, not Dwight. Michael. Yeah, he's like, Michael, I'll be there. And then Dwight like crashes into a pole, gets a concussion, and still drives away.
Still drives. He throws up on his hood.
He throws up on his hood. Oh my!
And then he's really nice to Pam the rest of the day.
Oh,
that's a great episode. The other episode I got, Booze Cruise. Booze Cruise is just fun.
They filmed that in California, right? They filmed it like in Newport or something.
Yeah.
Somewhere
I think
around
it was there. My guess is it's probably in like Newport Harbor or Long Beach Harbor, somewhere in there, like one of those where all those houses are.
Yeah.
You know what? You're probably right. They probably did film it in Newport Harbor.
For people who don't know, I guess this show, I don't know if it actually ever was filmed any scene outside of some cutscenes in Scranton.
It was filmed in the Valley.
Dude, it was filmed in Van Nuys. You can visit that place, which is on my list of places to visit. You can visit the building. They won't let you in, but you can visit the outside.
Yeah, you can visit the outside, take pictures. But yeah, it's in the Valley here in Southern California. By the Valley, we mean, like Travis said, Van Nuys, northern part of Los Angeles.
Burbank.
It's there. Burbank, all the places. Why does Siri get out of here? No one wants you.
Siri's just Tinkerbell Part 2, man.
Yeah, but no, Booze Cruise is great. And then for me, my next favorite episode is the finale. It's a year later. The group gets back together. They close it out really well on what was a really bad season 9. Right.
Yeah,
season 9 it's still
agree.
Watchable, but man, but they ended it perfectly. Like it could not have gone better.
that episode picked up for a lot of the stuff that it suffered with. You know, I mean, in that last season, you had a lot of things going on, and then trying to kind of like pick up the pace. I mean, you even had that pilot that people didn't know about.
The farm.
They tried to do with the farm with Dwight's family, which honestly I would have watched because I watch a lot of stuff. Well, you're just picky, man.
I know I'm picky, but I didn't like the kid was weird. He was like a grown up, but he was like 6.
Yo,
with the suit.
That kid's dead. That's disrespectful.
No, I have no idea.
Oh my god!
No idea. He's a ghost. I don't.
Oh my god! Oh no.
To be honest. Yeah, they
forced.
I lived on this, and then for people who watch a lot of shows and like stuff, like you can kind of sense out it really does happen, you know.
Yeah.
So the pilot episode was kind of weird. But to have it capped off with that finale was great, you know, because you got Gutenpronk from Jim just being the imposter of a best man, just to have Steve Carell come up.
Oh, it was great.
Gutenpronk and then Steve Carell Steve Carell comes up and all he says is that's what she said, and then he goes and hugs Dwight. I literally was like crying most of that episode the first time I watched it, to be honest.
Yeah, it was great.
So it meant a lot.
Do you have any other best episodes you want to add? Those are kind of, I mean, a lot of the episodes I love. I added the ones that are kind of integral to plot or just integral to like, they're just like ridiculously funny, like Scott Stotts, you know?
Yeah, I think we think really similar.
Yeah,
we have a lot of the same funniest episodes.
I agree. Which
but I
works.
think a lot of it comes down to like favorite moments also.
Yes.
Yeah, I think favorite moments is a big thing too, because I mean, with their giving a bunch of episodes, like the big thing with a lot of the Office fans is being able to just like grab a segment from a random episode and be like, that was hilarious.
Oh yeah,
right?
Yeah. There's a ton of those too. Like, it's basically like
me,
all like. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. I'm good. Go ahead. I insist.
Okay, so thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
So one of my favorite episodes. It wasn't necessarily funny, but one of the favorite moments, and I think a lot of people will say it. I think it's from Andy Bernard. Oh, not think. I know it's from Andy Bernard, and he says something along the lines of, you know, the very last episode, they're having the last like group hangout in the office, and they're having a drink. They're just reminiscing. You know, they all went their separate ways for the most part. And Andy just looks at the talking, like does his talking head amongst everybody and just says, you know, I wish there was a way to know we're in the good old days before they become the good old days, you know?
Yeah.
And that just hits differently, man.
That hits.
That one just, it's that whole thing of like, you know, one day you just played catch for the last time in your neighborhood, with neighborhood kids. And then
when was the last time you ever played catch? You don't know. Bro, like at some point it was the last time.
At some point it was the last time. And so like that part just hit. Like that was one of the most emotional. And I was like, man, that line, like obviously I can remember it because that line stuck with me. But there's so many funny things, written. But that was one of the most like exactly how you said, beautifully written lines that they had to deliver. And of course, like it would have been cool like anybody, but it meant a lot to have Andy say it because Andy
he went through a lot
going. He went through
a lot.
His wife, his fiance cheating on him. His family went broke. Found out they were racist.
Yeah,
like
I know.
Went through so much.
He had the craziest like plot for sure. He had the most wildest character development, without a doubt. But that line, it rings true for more than just the show. Like obviously it hits the show because I wonder if that's like the show kind of like talking to, you know, the audience, like, hey, this is one of the greatest shows you're ever going to watch. And you probably won't realize it until long after you're not going to watch it anymore.
I really think they probably did that. As creative as the show is,
I something like that.
Past them.
Because that show, it has its problems just like every other show does, but the show is really, it's amazing what, and you know, when all those characters are giving their final thoughts at the end of the episode, they're like, how did you do it? How did you create this thing? That's kind of like the producers and the writers being very on the nose and saying like, yeah, you know, we know we made something incredible and we were able to make you guys think that these are real life characters. These are real people in a real setting, in a setting that you could walk down the street and, you know, and see for yourself. But we made it in such a way that it's going to stick with you because these characters and these situations are relevant to your day-to-day life. And you're going to remember a lot of, like, you'll go through your normal work day or, you know, during your life, things will happen and it'll take you right back to the office. It happens to us. I know I'll speak for myself. It happens to me all the time. you know?
Exactly.
And when a show is able to really do that, that's something, you know, it really is.
You know, they went through that last episode and they brought up a lot. Like they put like a little montage together, especially with the Jim and Pam thing about how she was enough for him. And, you know, I think it was the last episode or the episode before, but it was
the
one of the
episode
last
before.
2 episodes.
Yes.
And it just goes to show like how much this show kind of like meant to a lot of people. And like, you can't watch that and not be caught up in the tears because you remember how much of like emotionally devoted you were to like the development of each character and for them to like finish their plot points together. And it just showed like the humanness and like the down to earth and groundedness that the show was and how you could relate, where it was like really grounded, you know? And that's like what worked for it, is it could remind you of like, these are normal characters, but they mean so much. Like you want to see them achieve their plot points, right? And you want to see them grow. And so you get invested, man. And like, that's what that show meant. Like you could see the similarities in each one. Like I know even today we were literally like talking about this and we were saying like the show meant so much to us that we can, and for most Office fans, you would go around and be like, who are you? Like if you were to pick an Office character, who are you? And it's never just one character.
No,
it really isn't. It's always a mixture.
Yeah, it can't be.
You know? I forgot who I said you were. I think you
said
like
I was
Creed
a combination
and,
of Creed. No, not Siri. I was a combination of Creed, Roy, and Andy. And I think that's completely accurate. I know what
like,
I am.
I literally, you are what you are. I don't know who I am. I feel like everybody's a little bit of Creed. So I'll say that. Everybody's a little bit of Creed.
You're Ryan when he's a hipster?
I feel like I can agree with that. You know, I get hated on my ankle shows, so you know, I feel that.
I can't think of the other one. Maybe Oscar.
But yeah.
This show is that's But the show, that's what makes the show so good, is because it really feels like these are real people. You know, it feels like we were watching a documentary, and that's one thing that this show has over Parks and Rec. Parks and Rec, those characters are so zany. There's no way that they're real people.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's a whole show full of people that are just incredibly zany, except for me. I think Ben Wyatt's the least zany of all of them, but he's the one who looks into the camera. We'll get into Ben. Yeah. I have a lot of thoughts about Ben Wyatt on the next podcast when we talk about
Ben Wyatt's great, man.
I'm really excited. If I were any character ever, it'd be Ben Wyatt. Like that's for sure me, without a doubt, 100% on Ben Wyatt. It's the Iron Throne. Okay, but we'll get to that when we get to it. But no, the show it's phenomenal, and you know I just have a lot of positive things to say about it. But in terms of negativity, there is some negativity. We touched on it a little bit. Where do you think the sweet spot of this show was? Like, when did the show hit its peak? Where was it bad for you? And like, if you had to draw like a graph, you know, like, and like kind of show the arc of the show, how would you do it?
I feel like it goes, obviously it starts season 1 and it's going up, right?
Yep.
And I think it's about season 6, the end of the season 6 finale is when Michael Scott leaves, and then you have 7, 8, 9, if I'm not mistaken. Or is it?
He leaves middle of season 7.
Okay, so right then, so wherever he leaves, literally wherever he leaves, it kind of reaches its peak. But Robert California is solid, so you can't discount that. So if it hits the peak at when Michael leaves, if anything, it may take a slight dip, but then also kind of level out because Robert California kind of held it, but then it starts going down at that point. Yeah, and then it kind of picks up at the last 2 episodes because I really love the last 2 episodes.
I have a different graph altogether. Okay.
Yeah. Show it.
The first 3 seasons are the best 3 seasons of The Office. Because it's every episode is ridiculously hilarious. They haven't reused a lot of the jokes, and the Jim and Pam arc is still really strong. Yeah. So for me, the first 3 seasons, it's going like this. Then it hits its peak at the end of season 3 when they have that job interview and Jim asks Pam to go to dinner. That's the peak of the show. That is as good as the show gets.
That's a great moment because nobody saw it coming.
No, that's as good as the show gets. Well, then after that, it takes a slight dip, but it holds steady until the end of when Michael Scott leaves. It really does. Yeah, but it's not a big dip. It's a very slight dip. Then what happens is season 8, right after when Robert California is there, it takes another small dip and it remains. But in season 9, it tanks.
It just tanks. I mean, whole thing with Andy leaving and going to the Bahamas, selling his ship.
Yeah.
And then coming back. Before that, he went to Florida. I don't know what was going on, man. There was a whole Kathy Bates stuff coming in.
Yeah, I didn't like Joe Bennett. She's funny, but she was not good in the show.
Well, I feel like the show banked on doing well with a lot of people who weren't no name, but when it got popular, they made sure to put people in that were big name, which it did work on some spots, but I think they kind of overdid it a little bit with that. You know, I don't want to say jumping the shark, but they kind of did jump like maybe a dolphin.
they jumped the flounder. They jumped
something. They jumped something.
Something was jumped. But for me, the first 3 seasons up until Jim asked Pam out, that's the best to show it. Like every episode is funny, or it's advancing the overall story of the plot. Because what happened was after season 3, there was really no plot driver. It was just kind of like, now we're just going to show you a bunch of comedy that's ensuing in the office on a day-to-day basis. With The Office, that was what was interesting. The Jim and Pam arc kind of gave you like that Ross and Rachel effect, where you're kind of wanting some of like to see what was going on, while at the same time, man, don't thumbs down Friends. Don't you get out of here?
Friends is the reason we didn't get The Office and Parks and Rec. They spent like $100 million on Friends. Netflix.
I agree. I agree on that.
Come on.
But the relationship aspect of it is what made the show very, very captivating. On top of all the humor, it had both going for it, right? It had amazing humor and it had a really good relationship set up. That, you know, it was like, it wasn't even an on again, off again thing. There were these 2 people that were flirting. One guy put himself out there. She rejected him, and then they, you know, basically were forced to work with each other again. That to me was why the first 3 seasons were phenomenal, along with the fact that you were still learning about these characters as you went. Granted, the show didn't get bad. There was never a really bad portion except for season 9 up until the last 2 episodes. Right?
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of the stuff, it always comes back to the same girl. Like, I really don't like her. Is that girl Katie, Karen, whatever her name is?
Yeah, she was like, there for only to be a homewrecker.
Like, honestly, everything she was in, and she kept feeling like Jim. Like, anything she was in, that would, for me, was like the low point, because I was like, they're reaching. They really are reaching. And so I just felt like that I could have done without. Like, you gave me Jim and Pam. You made us go through a lot. Now you're trying to give us Jim and Pam after the newlywed effect wears off. And I was like, I mean, while it is kind of true, do I really want to see that?
Not
really.
You don't want to see that.
Like, but yeah, that part was a low point for me, and that's why I have like a lot of negative thoughts.
I know, but overall though, like this show's great. It's, if you had to put on your Mount Rushmore of sitcoms, it's up there. Like if you had to do right now your Mount Rushmore of sitcoms, what are your 4?
Man,
I'm really putting you on the spot.
Yeah, definitely The Office, Parks and Rec. Yep. I mean, I would love to put New Girl up there. Yep. I would. How many of you?
The last three seasons.
How many heads are there? There's 4 heads, right?
There's 4 heads. It's Washington. 5. How many heads are up there? Well, there's technically 8, but there's 4.
I don't give a heck about the presidents. Nah. Definitely Office, Parks and Rec. I want to put New Girl, but I know that's a whole different discussion. Is the last 2 seasons of New Girl were
we're bad.
Really rough. But I'll probably have to for sure put Office, Parks and Rec. I want to throw Brooklyn Nine-Nine up there. And then probably the George Lopez show, to be honest.
George Lopez is good. Yeah,
George Lopez show meant a lot.
Yours is similar. Siri, what are you doing?
You know what? I'm going to take Brooklyn Nine-Nine off and put That 70s Show. That 70s Show I can watch all the time. That would probably be my 4.
You took me to where I wanted to go. Mine is for sure, it's Parks and Rec, it's The Office, it's That 70s Show, and then for me, it's Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Those are the best 4 sitcoms Fresh Prince is like, that's everything. I grew up watching that show, but it's on there, and I think it's really cool because, you know, due to Netflix, this show ended in 2014. There's a whole new generation of people, you know, younger than us, these idiot Gen Zers. Sorry, I said it.
Double down, bro.
I'm doubling down. Anyways. So it's giving everyone a chance to watch an amazing sitcom, a sitcom that they don't make it like these anymore, and they never will be able to make it like these anymore. This show, it has all the inappropriate humor you want, everything you want in terms of character development, everything you want in terms of just an overall great ensemble cast, and people have been able to watch it on Netflix for years, you know, as part of a $9.99 subscription if you're only getting one screen. And I think it's been a virtue for people to be able to watch this show. So I think that the legend of because of Netflix, the show became more popular, right? I know that's how I watched it, was on Netflix. So I'm assuming a lot of people were.
It really did. And Netflix really reached into the graveyard of like network sitcom like cancellations and would just bring these things out and just freaking Frankenstein it. Not even Frankenstein, but just like give them like just life support and then just bring them back. And then they take a whole, like, it's crazy. Like, I think one of the ones, and like, I mean, they owe to a lot. Like a lot of these shows owe it to Netflix. And as much as I get frustrated with them, like choosing to put a bunch of money into Friends, they brought back a lot of shows, and The Office popularity owes it to Netflix, man.
Well, Chappelle show's on Netflix now too. You know that?
Chappelle Show. I mean, they brought back like one of the ones I always think about is like Arrested Development. That thing had like an 8, 9, 10-year gap in between seasons, but Netflix picked it up and brought it back. Like, so if it wasn't for Netflix putting this on syndication in a sense, I mean, I don't think you're getting a whole generation of people who are naming their kids Jim, Pam, Dwight, Michael. You know,
I agree. So, you got any closing thoughts before we end the pod?
Man, just so many things, but a lot of emotions. But that's what she said. That's all I can think about, man.
I'll let you get the last word on that one, though. I completely agree with that. Travis, I want to thank you for joining me on this episode, man. Thank you for being my second guest. Thank you for taking the time on your Friday night to do this with me. There's nobody I'd rather do this with, so I greatly appreciate it. And for everyone listening, please like and subscribe on YouTube, like and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. If you like what you hear and you want to hear more, just listen to everything else that I got. I got 26 episodes now, including this one. I'm just putting out the content on the Instagram. We're putting out straight fire on the Instagram. We're putting out a lot more memes, just trying to keep you guys more engaged. I'm putting out more polls. That's my memager right there, by the way, in case you didn't know. But I want to thank everybody for their time. Thank you for listening. And as always, guys, peace and love. Thanks.